focus on yourself, and shock. Everybody, welcome back to the Motive Mind, where we transform ordinary thinking into extraordinary living. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most powerful concepts that separates those who dream from those who achieve. Focus on yourself and shock everybody. Right now, as you're listening to this, there are people around you who think they know your limits. They've written your story before you've even finished the first chapter. They've placed you in a box based on who you were yesterday, last month, or last year. But here's what they don't understand, and what you're about to discover. The person who focuses intensely on their own growth, who commits to their own evolution, becomes unrecognizable to the world around them. Today, we're going to explore why the most successful people in history made the radical decision to tune out the noise, focus inward, and emerge as someone nobody saw coming. So grab your notebook, silence those notifications, and let's begin this transformation together. Part 1. The Power of Internal Focus. Let me start with a story that changed my entire perspective on self-development. In 1995, a young man named Dwayne Johnson was cut from the Calgary Stampeders football team. He had $7 in his pocket and a dream that seemed crushed. The world saw a failed football player. But instead of seeking sympathy or blaming circumstances, he made a choice that would shock everyone who knew him. He disappeared. Not literally, but mentally and emotionally. While others were out partying, networking, or complaining about their situations, Dwayne focused on one thing: becoming the best version of himself. He spent years in dingy gyms, perfecting his craft in wrestling rings that most people had never heard of. He studied, he trained, he evolved. The world that once knew him as a failed football player eventually met The Rock, one of the most successful entertainers and businessmen of our generation. He didn't just change careers, he changed species. He shocked everybody. But here's the crucial insight. The transformation didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen while he was focused on what others thought of him. It happened during those quiet years when he was obsessed with his own growth. This is the first principle we need to understand. True transformation occurs in the space between who you are and who you're becoming, and that space requires absolute focus on yourself. Think about a butterfly for a moment. During its metamorphosis, it doesn't check in with other caterpillars to see if they approve of its transformation. It doesn't post updates on social media asking for validation. It goes into complete isolation, focuses entirely on its own biological process, and emerges as something entirely different. The other caterpillars are shocked. They don't even recognize what their friend has become. When you focus on yourself with the same intensity, you trigger what I call the unrecognizable effect. People who knew you before will struggle to connect the dots between who you were and who you've become. Your growth becomes so profound that it challenges their assumptions about what's possible. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think focusing on yourself means being selfish or arrogant. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about becoming so obsessed with your own potential that external distractions lose their power over you. Consider Michael Jordan during his early years in the NBA. After being cut from his high school basketball team, he could have spent his time complaining about the coach's decision or seeking validation from others. Instead, he became obsessed with improvement. He practiced longer, trained harder, and studied the game more intensively than anyone around him. His teammates from those early Chicago Bulls days often talk about how Jordan would be in the gym hours before practice and hours after. While others were going out, he was perfecting his fadeaway jumper. While others were sleeping in, he was running stairs. His focus was so intense on his own development that he created a gap between himself and everyone else that seemed impossible to bridge. The result? He didn't just become a better basketball player. He redefined what excellence looked like in his sport. He shocked the world. Part 2. The Noise That Holds You Back. Now, let's talk about the biggest enemy of self-focus, the noise. And I'm not just talking about external noise, though that's certainly part of it. I'm talking about the internal noise that keeps you locked in patterns that don't serve you. The external noise is obvious. It's the family member who says, "Why don't you get a real job?" It's the friend who rolls their eyes when you talk about your goals. It's the colleague who makes passive-aggressive comments about your new habits. It's society telling you to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to fit in. But the internal noise is more dangerous because it's disguised as logic. It sounds like, "Who am I to think I can achieve this? What if I fail and everyone sees? Maybe I should wait until I'm more prepared. I don't want people to think I've changed." Let me tell you about Sara Blakely, the founder of Spanx. In her late 20s, she was selling fax machines door to door, making $16,000 a year. She had an idea for footless pantyhose, but she had no business experience, no connections in the fashion industry, and no money to start a company. The noise around her was deafening. Her friends thought she was crazy to quit her stable job. Her family worried about her financial security. Industry experts told her it was impossible to break into the hosiery business without massive capital and connections. But here's what Sara did that changed everything. She stopped listening to the noise and started listening to her own vision. She spent her evenings and weekends researching, learning, and developing her product. She didn't announce her plans to everyone. She didn't seek constant validation. She focused on the work. For 2 years, she worked in complete obscurity. She was rejected by manufacturer after manufacturer. She was told no more times than most people hear it in a lifetime. But because she had tuned out the external noise and conquered the internal doubt, she persisted. When Spanx finally launched and became a billion-dollar company, the same people who had doubted her were shocked. They couldn't understand how the woman who used to sell fax machines had become one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in history. The noise had told her it was impossible. Her focus on herself proved the noise wrong. This brings us to a critical realization. The people who are making the most noise about your dreams are usually the ones who have given up on their own. They're not trying to protect you from failure. They're trying to protect themselves from the discomfort of seeing what's possible when someone refuses to settle. When you focus intensely on yourself, you hold up a mirror to everyone around you. Your commitment to growth forces them to confront their own lack of commitment. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your progress makes their stagnation more apparent. This is why people will try to pull you back down. It's not about you, it's about them. Understanding this is liberating because it means their opinions about your journey have nothing to do with your actual potential. Think about the people in your life right now, the ones who are truly supportive of your growth, who celebrate your wins and encourage your efforts. These are usually people who are also committed to their own development. The ones who are dismissive, discouraging, or constantly pointing out potential problems. These are often people who have stopped growing themselves. You cannot let the second group dictate the trajectory of your life. Part 3. The metamorphosis process. Let's get practical. How do you actually focus on yourself in a way that creates shocking transformation? It's not just about working harder. It's about working on the right things with laser-like precision. The first step is what I call the audit. You need to become brutally honest about where you are right now versus where you want to be. Not where you think you should be based on your age, your background, or what others expect, but where you genuinely want to be. I want you to imagine it's 5 years from now. You walk into a room where people who knew the old you are gathered. What do you want their reaction to be? What do you want them to be shocked by? Your physical transformation? Your career success? Your confidence? Your expertise in a particular field? Your relationships? Your impact on the world? Write this down. Be specific. Because transformation without a clear target is just random activity. Now, here's where most people get stuck. They try to change everything at once. They want to transform their body, their career, their relationships, their finances, and their mindset all simultaneously. This is a recipe for overwhelm and failure. Instead, I want you to identify your keystone transformation, the one area that, if dramatically improved, would have the biggest positive impact on all other areas of your life. For some people, this might be their physical health. When they transform their body, they gain confidence that spills over into their career. Their energy improves, which enhances their relationships. Their discipline in fitness translates to discipline in other areas. For others, it might be their professional skills. When they become exceptionally good at something valuable, their income increases, their confidence grows, and they attract different people into their life. Let me share the story of Tim Ferriss. In the early 2000s, he was running a supplement company that was consuming his life. He was working 80-hour weeks, stressed constantly, and felt trapped in his own business. Instead of complaining or accepting this as his fate, he made a radical decision to focus on one specific skill: efficiency. He disappeared from the social scene. While his peers were networking at industry events and maintaining busy social calendars, Tim was obsessively studying productivity, automation, and lifestyle design. He read everything he could find, conducted experiments on himself, and meticulously tracked his results. The world knew him as a stressed-out entrepreneur. But during those months of intense self-focus, he was becoming something else entirely: an expert in human optimization and lifestyle design. When The 4-Hour Workweek was published, it didn't just become a bestseller. It created an entire movement. Tim hadn't just written a book. He had become a completely different type of person. The transformation was so complete that he shocked everyone who knew him. But here's the key insight. The shocking part wasn't just the external success, it was the internal transformation. Tim had changed his relationship with work, with time, with productivity, and with life itself. The book was just the external manifestation of that internal metamorphosis. This is what happens when you focus intensely on your keystone transformation. You don't just get better at one thing, you become a different type of person. And different types of people create different types of results. The process requires what I call monk-like focus. Just like a monk dedicates their life to spiritual development, you need to dedicate a significant portion of your mental and emotional energy to your chosen transformation. This means saying no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. It means spending your free time learning instead of consuming mindless entertainment. It means having uncomfortable conversations about your new priorities. It means being okay with people not understanding your choices. During this process, you'll encounter what I call the Valley of Invisible Progress. This is the period where you're working intensely on yourself, but the external results aren't obvious yet. You're putting in the work, but people around you don't see the changes. This is when most people quit. They think, "I've been working on myself for months and nothing has changed." But that's not true. Everything has changed. It just hasn't become visible yet. You're like a bamboo plant that grows underground for years before suddenly shooting up 90 feet in a matter of weeks. The people who shock everybody are the ones who persist through the Valley of Invisible Progress. They trust the process even when they can't see the immediate results. Part 4. Real examples of shocking transformations. Let me share some stories that perfectly illustrate what we're talking about. These are people who made the decision to focus intensely on themselves and emerged as someone completely different. First, let's talk about Oprah Winfrey. Most people know her as one of the most successful media personalities in history, but they don't know about the transformation that made it possible. In the 1970s, Oprah was a local news anchor in Baltimore, and she was failing. She was demoted, criticized for being too emotionally involved in her stories, and told she was unfit for television news. The conventional wisdom was that she should either conform to the traditional news anchor mold or find a different career. Instead, Oprah made a radical decision. She stopped trying to be what the television industry wanted her to be and started focusing on becoming authentically herself. While other anchors were trying to maintain emotional distance from their stories, Oprah embraced her natural empathy. While others were following rigid scripts, she allowed her personality to shine through. She spent years developing her unique approach to communication, studying psychology, spirituality, and human behavior. She wasn't trying to become a better news anchor. She was becoming a completely different type of media personality. When she eventually got her own talk show, she didn't just succeed, she revolutionized the entire medium. The same traits that made her unfit for traditional news made her perfect for connecting with people on a deeper level. She shocked the industry and the world. Now let's look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. In the 1960s, he was a young man from a small Austrian village with a thick accent and an unusual dream: to become the greatest bodybuilder in the world, then a movie star, then a political leader. Everyone told him it was impossible. His accent would prevent him from succeeding in Hollywood. His bodybuilder physique was too unusual for leading man roles. His lack of political experience made his gubernatorial ambitions laughable. But Arnold understood something that his critics didn't. Each limitation could become an advantage if he focused on transforming himself strategically. Instead of trying to eliminate his accent, he made it part of his brand. Instead of trying to look like a typical actor, he chose roles that showcased his unique physique. Instead of following traditional political paths, he leveraged his celebrity status. The key was his relentless focus on self-improvement. While others were making excuses, Arnold was learning English by watching American movies over and over. While others were content with good enough, Arnold was training longer and harder than anyone else in the gym. While others were accepting conventional limitations, Arnold was finding ways to turn his disadvantages into advantages. Each transformation shocked people who knew him in the previous phase. His fellow bodybuilders were shocked when he became a movie star. Hollywood was shocked when he became a successful politician. But Arnold wasn't shocked, because he had been methodically focusing on becoming the person who could achieve these seemingly impossible goals. Here's a more recent example. David Goggins. In his 30s, Goggins was overweight, working as an exterminator, and living a life that was going nowhere. He weighed nearly 300 pounds and was deeply unhappy with his situation. Instead of accepting this as his permanent reality, Goggins made a decision that seemed insane to everyone around him. He was going to become a Navy SEAL. Not only was he too old and out of shape, but he had to lose over 100 pounds in just a few months to even qualify for the training. What happened next was one of the most dramatic self-transformations in modern times. Goggins disappeared from his old life and focused entirely on physical and mental conditioning. He ran when he didn't feel like running. He trained when his body was screaming for rest. He pushed through mental barriers that most people never even approach. The overweight exterminator transformed into one of the toughest endurance athletes in the world. He didn't just become a Navy SEAL, he became an ultra-marathon runner, a best-selling author, and a motivational speaker who inspires millions of people. The people who knew the old David Goggins were shocked beyond belief. They couldn't connect the person they remembered with the person he had become. That's the power of intense self-focus. Notice the pattern in all these stories. These individuals didn't just make small improvements. They underwent complete metamorphoses. They didn't just get better at what they were already doing. They became different types of people entirely. And in every case, the transformation happened during periods of intense self-focus, often when they withdrew from their normal social circles and dedicated themselves completely to their evolution. Part 5. The Practical Framework. Now, let's get specific about how you can apply this in your own life. I'm going to give you a framework that you can start implementing immediately. Phase 1. The isolation period, 30 to 90 days. This is when you temporarily reduce social activities and external commitments to create space for intense self-focus. You're not becoming antisocial. You're becoming strategic with your time and energy. During this phase, identify your keystone transformation and begin working on it daily. This might mean waking up earlier to exercise, spending evenings learning new skills, or dedicating weekends to building something meaningful. Phase 2. The building period, 6 to 18 months. This is the valley of invisible progress. You're consistently working on yourself, but the results aren't obvious to others yet. This is when your discipline becomes your identity. You're not someone who exercises sometimes, you're someone who exercises daily. You're not someone who learns occasionally, you're someone who is constantly growing. Phase 3. The emergence period. Ongoing. This is when your internal transformation begins to manifest externally. People start noticing changes in your confidence, your capabilities, your results. This is when the shocking begins. The key to success in this framework is what I call the 1% principle. Instead of trying to change everything dramatically overnight, focus on being 1% better than yesterday in your chosen area. These small improvements compound over time to create massive transformations. If you improve by just 1% every day for a year, you'll be 37 times better by the end of that year. That's not just improvement, that's metamorphosis. As we wrap up today's episode of The Motive Mind, I want you to remember this. The person you are right now is not the person you have to remain. The limitations others see in you are not permanent facts. They're temporary conditions that can be transformed through focused effort. The choice is in front of you right now. You can continue living according to other people's expectations and limitations, or you can make the radical decision to focus intensely on your own growth and evolution. Remember, when you truly commit to focusing on yourself, you're not just changing your own life. You're expanding what others believe is possible. Your transformation gives them permission to transform. Your courage to become unrecognizable inspires them to question their own limitations. So here's my challenge for you. Choose your keystone transformation. Start your isolation period. Begin the daily work that will compound into something extraordinary. And in 12 months, when people look at you with shock and amazement, remember that it all started with the decision to focus on yourself. The world is waiting to be shocked by who you're becoming. Don't keep them waiting too long. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and expanding your mind. This has been The Motive Mind. And remember, your potential is unlimited, but it requires your focus to become reality. Now go shock everybody.